I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter.
This should have been the biggest bombshell to come out of the special counsel's testimony in Congress. There was an audio tape of Joe Biden both admitting to knowing that he's got classified materials in his home and then just handing it over to a random writer with no security clearance, all for an $8 million book deal. And guys, if that was Donald Trump, any reasonable person can tell you if that was Donald Trump, clown world would literally lose their minds. But it's not Donald Trump. It's their mess. So clown world ignores it. And they completely cover it up. And when all this came out, when all this was happening, I promised a deeper dive on the Biden special counsel cover-up that I believe Congress is now complicit in. And man, it's amazing. It is insane, remarkable stuff. And I'm not sure what's more amazing. The fact that our government will so blatantly protect a Democrat for more egregious examples of the crimes that they are currently prosecuting Donald Trump for, or the fact that so many mushy-brained victims of propaganda have actually taken in all of this available information and somehow come to the conclusion that Joe Biden is innocent and that he did absolutely nothing wrong. It is insane. I just cannot wrap my brain around that. It is truly crazy. There is no other possible explanation. These people are crazy. I mean, the same people that believe the whole narrative that the only building in America with as much Secret Service protection as the White House, which is Trump's Mar-a-Lago in Florida, was a security risk. The same people that believe that can somehow hear the things in this testimony and be completely unmoved.
Mr. Hur, classified documents were found at the Penn Biden Center?
That's correct.
They were found in President Biden's garage?
In Wilmington, Delaware, yes.
And in his basement den?
Also in the same home, yes.
And his main floor office?
Correct.
And his third floor den?
Correct.
At the University of Delaware?
Correct.
And at the Biden Institute?
Correct.
It's amazing, man. I mean, any other person on the entire planet, any private citizen, anyone in the defense industry especially, would be completely toast for just one of those documents in just one of those places. But somehow people can hear that and just completely ignore it. I mean, it doesn't even faze them. It's worse than ignoring it. These people have just become so intellectually amputated by literally the daily drip of nonsense from their tribalist side that this is just the kind of stuff that happens. And, you know, people are this stupid. And of course they're this stupid. If people were not this stupid, we would not have people like Cori Bush in Congress, which I'm about to show you, man. And even in Congress, man, I cannot believe this. St. Louis and her, they should be doing something else.
The lady from Missouri is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here, Mr. Hur. St. Louis and I are here today once again to focus on the real issues that affect our communities instead of partisan hit jobs. Let me start by saying that the potential mishandling of classified information is a serious issue, and I believe it was appropriate for the Attorney General to appoint both special counsels in the Biden and Trump cases. As my colleagues have pointed out, President Biden fully complied with the investigation conducted by Special Counsel Hur, who did not find evidence sufficient to warrant criminal charges. Despite this outcome, Republicans have used the Special Counsel's report to further their longstanding efforts to re-elect the former white supremacist in chief, Donald Trump, who faces 40 criminal charges related to the mishandling of classified documents, including obstruction of justice. While President Biden returned all of the classified material and complied with the special counsel's investigation.
This is why people are so stupid. I mean, this is how their elected representatives prepare for doing the people's business. I mean, she used her time, instead of making any thoughtful points, asking any thoughtful questions that may actually prove her belief that Joe Biden did nothing wrong. She says she believes it. There's no way she believes that. Instead of doing that, she acted like a complete idiot and accused Donald Trump of being a white supremacist for the who knows how many millionth time, right? And just think about that double standard. Donald Trump can't even say that he didn't assault someone without getting fined almost $100 million. But St. Louis and her, they can literally say whatever baseless nonsense they want whenever they want. Just a quick reminder on her, you know, she's currently under DOJ investigation herself for a money laundering type scheme. And I hope that turns into something. I hope that it turns into whatever it is. I mean, follow the evidence, of course. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, she was big in the whole push to defund the police, and especially for her constituents in St. Louis. She left them completely unprotected. But while she was doing that, she set up a scam worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for her own private security. And she employs her husband to do that. So fingers crossed. She'll be held accountable, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I mean, she does have a D before her name, and that might as well be gold-plated platinum armor in this day and age. But anyway, another incredibly intelligent angle some of the big thinkers on the Democrat side took was to call the guy who saved Joe Biden, literally saved his ass. They want to call him a Republican operative. And they say he did it all for Donald Trump so that he will somehow maybe get some sort of favor from Donald Trump. I mean, it's amazing that these people, they have entire staffs preparing them for this stuff. And this is what they come up with. And I'm going to show you some of the craziest ones. But guys, first, be a part of our growth. You know, this is going to be a very, very difficult year to get conservative voices heard. And I need your help to do it. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. Have a look at this.
Well,
Not what happened.
let me move on.
Partisan
then.
politics
Sir,
played no
are a
part
member
whatsoever in my work.
You are a
My
member
work
of the
was
Federalist
independent
Society, are you not?
And fair.
Are you a member of the Federalist Society?
I am not a member of the Federalist Society.
But you are a Republican, though, aren't you?
I am a registered Republican.
Yes, sir. And you're doing everything you can do to get President Trump reelected so that you can get appointed as a federal judge or perhaps to another position in the Department of Justice, isn't that?
Yeah, so that one's so ridiculous it actually made Jim Jordan laugh out loud. And man, the fact that these people exist, it blows my freaking mind. I mean, just think about what this guy is peddling here. He says that Robert Hur, after all the evidence that he's disclosed regarding hundreds of actual crimes, he says that he declined to prosecute Joe Biden so that Donald Trump will win and appoint him to the federal bench so he can make, what, $100,000 a year? These are not serious people, man. But you thought that was bad. Here's one of my favorite geniuses in all of Congress, in all of government.
Appeared in your report, though. Is that correct? The word photographic?
That does not appear in my report.
I now want to show you and play a video of what is absolutely not photographic.
In the failing New York Times by an anonymous, really an ominous, gutless coward. We are a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation.
And I watch our police and our firemen down on 7-Eleven, down at the World Trade Center.
You want to be perceived, understandably, as credible, and so I want to first see if you will pledge to not accept an appointment from Donald Trump if he is elected again as president.
Congressman, I'm not here to testify
Seems like an
today
easy
about
answer.
what will happen in the
Considering
future.
what I just laid out.
I'm here to talk about the report and the work that went into it. And
But you don't want to be associated with that guy again, do you?
Congressman, I'm not here to offer any opinions about what may or may not happen in the future. I'm here to talk about the work that went into the report, which I stand by.
These are not serious people, man. Swalwell, who knows personally the great lengths a foreign spy will go to, spends his time playing a goofy video of Trump mispronouncing words, and then again with the $100,000 a year judge theory, imploring Robert Hur to make a decision to not be associated with that guy, as he does his best to cover up in Congress the crimes of his guy. These are not serious people. Anyone who thinks that these people have your best interests at heart, you're really lying to yourself, man. Robert Hur, I believe, could run for Congress with probably the best ad ever. I mean, something about, once I saw how stupid they all were, I had to act. I just had to act. He would win, man. But anyway, here's where we're at. Democrats ignored the fact that Hur's report contains actual crimes, and instead they focused as heavily as they possibly could on the one and only reason that Robert Hur declined to prosecute him. Definitely a strange strategy when you really think about it. And really, when you have a strange strategy, it's probably best to not let an out-of-breath Jerry Nadler run point on your messaging.
Hur says he had to, mention the president's mental state, had to evaluate that in order to explain why he didn't bring charges.
That is not true. He didn't. This was a Republican hit job. Remember, Bob Hur is the same individual who wrote for Bob Barr the false summary of the Mueller report that was released a month before the Mueller report was written. We're dealing with a Republican hitman. And the one thing I do not understand is why there is a 100% pattern of Democratic attorneys general hiring Republican special counsels and Republican attorneys general hiring Republican special counsels.
Were you concerned? Yeah, we're dealing with a Republican hitman. Poor Jerry, man. That's what Jerry says. This poor guy. He doesn't know which way is up anymore. And then, of course, Jerry's harmless, but the worst of the worst, Adam Schiff.
And you also understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely my decision.
What you did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you did it anyway.
You know, they all get together and they make a plan. They come up with whatever strategy they believe that you are dumb enough to believe. And that's the direction they all go in. And the direction they went, really, I guess, when you think about it, maybe the only direction they had. But there are so many crimes, you know, that they couldn't possibly attack the actual crimes that are contained in the report. They really probably couldn't argue against the audio recordings. They definitely can't try to claim that the Corvette garage was secure. So they all got stuck on the only reason that Robert Hur had to not recommend charges for the president. And again, super strange strategy. You know, the Democrats, here's where we're at. The Democrats are not upset that they declined to prosecute. They're not upset that he discovered actual crimes and listed them. They're upset that he gave real detail on his reasoning for not prosecuting the president. And really, who they should be mad at is Attorney General Merrick Garland. He could have redacted whatever he wanted in that report, but that's basically what we got from them. They kept talking about the fact that he got through the State of the Union without embarrassing himself too dramatically as proof that Robert Hur was wrong and his brain, Joe Biden's brain, actually works. And they also found the one line in the entire Biden transcript that was released just that morning that could possibly try and impugn the credibility of the special counsel. And just think about that strategy for a second. Democrats want you to believe that the guy who let Joe off the hook is a political actor with no credibility. And if we do believe that, well, shouldn't the logical response to that be, well, let's get someone else and let's get him prosecuted then?
And I want to give you a chance, since the transcript is out, to correct the record on an important point. Very sadly, your report on page 208 says that Mr. Biden couldn't come up with the date, the year of his son, Beau Biden's death, when in fact in the transcript it shows that you asked him the month. And do you know what he said, Mr. Hur? He said, oh God, May 30th. Would you like to correct the record? His memory was pretty firm on the month and the day.
Congresswoman, I don't believe that's correct with respect to the transcript, but if you could refer me to a specific page, I'd be happy to look.
And my second document, to clarify for you, sir, Mr. Hur, from the transcription, page 82, the words are President Biden's. What month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30th. A searing memory. I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
They try to beat the guy into submission, right? They essentially want the special counsel to basically say, hey, you know, my mistake. I guess he's not a well-meaning old man with a poor memory. I guess he remembers just fine, which, again, should lead any reasonable person to wonder then, why isn't he charged? And luckily for Joe Biden, unluckily for the rest of us, if you actually read that transcript, nothing she says is true. Nothing she says is even close to true. He had to be prodded for the date. He never ever remembered the year without help from his aides. And honestly, if you read the transcript, it's so bad that it almost has to be an act. I mean, the guy's gone, but I don't believe that even Joe Biden is that far mentally gone. But Anyway, that was the left's approach. Republicans, now obviously they have political motives here also. This whole thing is a political exercise, but nothing said from either side has any chance of changing the decision, right? Nothing from either side has any chance of changing the outcome. But the purpose, I think, from the Republican side is to really get to the bottom of why the decision was made. And really, I think, to help as many citizens as possible understand that the Hur report really does contain proof of actual crimes. And this is not some sort of innocence doctrine like the president and his gang of propagandists have claimed. And Democrat favorite Matt Gaetz, I think, lays that out pretty well.
So here's what I'm understanding, right? As Mr. Armstrong laid out, you find in your report that the elements of a federal criminal violation are met, but then you apply this senile cooperator theory, that because Joe Biden cooperated and the elevator doesn't go to the top floor, you don't think you get a conviction. And I actually think you get to the right answer in that. I don't think Biden should have been charged, don't think Trump should have been charged. But under the senile cooperator theory, isn't it frustrating that Biden continues to go out and lie about the basic facts of the report that lay out a federal criminal violation?
Congressman, I need to disagree with at least one thing that you said, which is that I found that all of the elements were met. One of the elements of the relevant mishandling statute is the intent element, and what my report reflects is my judgment that based on the evidence, I would not be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury that that intent element had been met.
Right, but the reason you have that doubt is the senile cooperator theory. The fact that Joe Biden is so inept in responding that you can't prove the intent, which again, I don't quibble with that conclusion, but it's frustrating to be like, oh, well, this guy's not getting treated the same way as Trump because the elevator's not going to the top floor, so we can't prove intent. While at the same time, Biden goes out there at the White House and says, well, you know, he just blatantly lies. And what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not Biden's lying because he's still so senile, he hasn't read your report, or whether it's a little craftier and a little more devious and perhaps a little more intentional than we might otherwise think.
I like that. The senile cooperator theory. And it's funny because honestly, that really has been a talking point since the entire beginning of this deal. That's their reason for going after Trump and not going after Joe. I mean, the fact that the government says they were forced, so they claim, to raid Mar-a-Lago to protect our secrets from Trump and his billionaire buddies. But Joe Biden, he cooperated the entire time. But if you remember the timeline, which they do not want you to remember, they initially tried to hide this entire operation. You know, the Department of Justice was completely complicit in that. They wanted to hide the fact that Biden documents existed, but it got leaked. And at the same time that they were trying to hide those documents, at the same time they were raiding Donald Trump, they were allowing Biden's non-government personal attorneys to search properties on their own without any oversight, without any chain of custody concerns, without any concern at all. And this is the senile cooperator theory in action. So senile and such a cooperator that instead of leaving Joe's intent, which is what this whole deal was about, instead of leaving that up to a jury or even a judge, the prosecution makes that decision themselves. But the problem is, they can prove intent. They have him on tape admitting it and committing it. And it's pretty clear that his intent was to use your national security interest to make himself $8 million.
Yields back, the chair is recognized. Mr. Hur, why did he do it? Why did Joe Biden, in your words, willfully retain and disclose classified materials? I mean, he knew the law. Been in office like 50 years. 5 decades in the United States Senate, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 8 years as vice president. He got briefed every day as vice president. He's been in the Situation Room. In fact, you know he knew the rules because you said so on page 226. President Biden was deeply familiar with the measures taken to safeguard classified documents. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. Mr. Armstrong said this earlier. Joe Biden was deeply familiar with it. You're exactly right, because he told us when Jack Smith goes after President Trump, Joe Biden says, how could this happen? What data was in those documents that could compromise sources and methods? It's irresponsible. So Joe Biden knew the rules. You know he knew the rules. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. So, Mr. Hur, why did he break them?
Congressman, the conclusion as to exactly why the president did what he did is not one that we explicitly address in the report. The report explains my decision to the Attorney General that no criminal charges were warranted in this manner.
I think you did tell us. I think you told us, Mr. Hur. Page 231, you said this. President Biden had strong motivations. That's a key word. We're getting to motive now. President Biden had strong motivations to ignore the proper procedures for safeguarding the classified information in his notebooks. Why did he have strong motivations? Because, next word, because he decided months before leaving office to write a book. To write a book. That was his motive. He knew the rules. He broke them because he was writing a book. And you further say, and he began meeting with the ghostwriter while he was still vice president. There's the motive. Mr. Hur, how much did President Biden get paid for his book?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that information appears in the report.
It sure does. There's a dollar amount in there. You remember?
I don't. It may be $8 million. If that's
$8 million. Joe Biden had 8 million reasons to break the rules. Took classified information and shared it with the guy who was writing the book. That's why he did. He knew the rules, but he broke them for $8 million in a book advance. But you know what? It wasn't just the money. Joe Biden, here's this page 231, very next page. Joe Biden, in your report, Joe Biden viewed his notebooks as an irreplaceable, contemporaneous record of the most important moments of his vice presidency. He'd written this all down for the book, for the $8 million. And the next thing you say in your report is, quote, such a record would buttress his legacy as a world leader. You know what this is? It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just $8 million. It was also his ego. Pride and money is why he knowingly violated the rules. The oldest motives in the book, pride and money. You agree with that, Mr. Hur? You wrote it in your report.
That language, and it does appear in the report, and we did identify evidence supporting those assessments.
You also had another interesting statement in your report. You said Joe Biden, I want to make sure I get this right, viewed himself as a man of presidential timber. Remember that statement, Mr. Hur?
I believe that does appear in the report, at least in the executive summary.
Trump and his billion.
I think this is interesting.
Joe Biden,
because here's the scary part.
The entire time.
Page 200.
Remember the timeline.
I said this earlier in my opening statement.
Remember,
Page 200. Joe Biden
tried to hide this
is a
entire
quote. Joe Biden risked serious damage to America's national security when he shared information with his ghostwriter.
And at the same time that they
shared
were
it with his
trying to hide those
ghostwriter, the guy who was helping Joe Biden get $8 million.
They were allowing Biden's
no, by the way,
non-government
Mr. Hur,
personal attorneys.
what did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
And this is the
Chairman, if you're referring to the audio recordings that Mr. Dwanitzer created
and such
of his conversations with
exactly what I'm referring to.
Leaving Joe's intent.
He slid, if I remember correctly, he slid
instead of leaving
those
that up
files
to a
into
jury
his
or even a judge.
recycle bin.
The prosecution makes that decision.
Tried to destroy the evidence, didn't he?
Correct.
They can prove intent.
The very guy who was helping Joe Biden get the $8 million, Joe Biden used the motive for Joe Biden to disclose classified information, to retain classified information, which he definitely knew was against the law. When you get named special counsel, what's that guy do?
3, 2,
he destroys
1.
the evidence.
Honestly, man, there is no way that a reasonable, critically thinking person can read that report and watch that testimony without coming to the understanding the Democrats are stupid. I mean, honestly. And worse than that, as stupid as they are, they still think that they're smarter than you. And Joe Biden willfully retained classified documents. Knew that he had them, knew that he was disclosing them, which he also willfully chose to do. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chargeable and very, very serious crimes that he was protected from by a government that will tell you that no one is above the law. And nothing is more dangerous to American democracy than a would-be dictator and criminal, Donald Trump. And you know what? The amazing thing isn't that, they're doing it. The amazing thing is how many of our fellow citizens are supporting it and condoning it. It's freaking depressing when you think about it like that. But that's just my take, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.